You've been here before, promising yourself you'll do better with money, only to find yourself in the same financial mess again. It's frustrating, it's confusing, and sometimes it feels like no matter how hard you try, you just can't break the cycle. But here's the thing, money mistakes aren't always random. And until you're able to figure out what really drives your behavior, you'll likely keep making the same choices over and over again. And one reason why you keep repeating wrong patterns is because your brain is addicted to familiarity. So you might think that you're making choices, but if you dig deeper and really think about it, a lot of your financial decisions might just be habits on autopilot. Your brain loves routines, it actually craves them. And even when those routines are bad for you, they feel comfortable. And unfortunately, that's enough to keep you stuck. And to illustrate how all of this can work, let's say that you always buy takeout on nights that you're stressed. If that is the case, without you even realizing it, your brain has probably linked that action to relief. And if you've always waited until the very last minute to pay your bills, and you've operated like this for years, your brain might tell you that this is normal, even though it's not really the best approach. And this is why changing money habits can feel so uncomfortable at first, because it's not just about numbers, it's also about rewiring what your brain expects. So what's the solution? To break this, you have to start making tiny changes that break those routines. For example, if you always impulsively go through your favorite drive-thru after work, even though you've told yourself a million times that you're going to stop, instead of relying on willpower alone, take it a step further and actually take a different route home. Likewise, if you never have anything left to save at the end of the month, switch it up and start paying yourself first by setting up auto transfers into your savings before you even pay your bills. And the goal isn't to have an overnight dramatic shift. It's to slowly introduce new habits so that your brain doesn't fight back. There might also be an emotion attached to every dollar you spend. So for you, money might not be just about money. It might be a symbol of something deeper. And if you don't understand what it represents for you, you'll likely keep making the same mistakes without even realizing it. For example, maybe spending makes you feel in control and buying gifts makes you feel needed. Or maybe treating yourself after a bad week makes up for feeling unappreciated at work. But unfortunately, when your spending is tied to emotions, it stops being about logic. And no amount of budgeting advice can fix a problem that's actually emotional. So let's say you grew up without much money, and now that you're making your own, you spend freely just to prove to yourself that you're no longer struggling. A lot of people do this, but it can backfire quickly because the more you spend, the less likely you are to actually get ahead. And instead of building real stability, you might just be upgrading your struggles. So it's the same money stress, just with nicer stuff. So here's what you're gonna do. The next time you're about to spend money, pause and ask yourself, what feeling am I chasing right now? And am I spending because I'm happy, stressed, or lonely? And this is a key step because understanding the emotional reason behind your spending can help you separate what you actually need from what you're using money to fill. And finally, you might also make the same mistakes because you view future you as a different person. Have you ever promised yourself that you'll start saving next month or that you'll figure it out later? This is called temporal discounting, and it's basically a tendency to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits. This is why it's so easy for many people to justify spending now, even though they know it'll probably hurt them later on. Future you isn't here yet, so current you doesn't really feel the impact. But of course, future you always arrives, and suddenly you're that person dealing with the consequences. The money's gone, the bills are due, and you're making the same promises all over again. And if you want to break this cycle for good, you have to start making future you feel real. And one trick, which may seem corny, but don't knock it until you try it, is to write a letter to yourself 1 year from now. And in this letter, you want it to be very detailed, and you're going to describe how you want your finances to look and what steps you're taking to get there. In addition, when you're making financial decisions, imagine future you sitting across the table and consider whether they would thank you or be frustrated with you. And again, it all might seem a little silly, but making your future self feel like a real person can help you think twice before making decisions that could hurt you. In the end, the brain loves a routine, and whether it's good or bad, this can shape the way you handle money. But the good news is that once you see what's happening and you recognize bad patterns, you can start making different choices. But you have to be willing to interrupt those old habits and start thinking about future you as someone worth taking care of.